All right, and I just wanted to say hello and welcome to everybody. I'm George. I'm the Director of Education here at VoiceThread. Today's workshop is going to be a hands-on session. So if you want to participate in the hands-on activities, you will need to be signed into your Canvas course in either Chrome or Firefox. All right, so before we get into the where to click, I want to go over kind of a high level overview real briefly about how the integration works. There are 6 different types of links you can add in Canvas. 3 of them are non-graded and 3 of them are graded. The non-graded links are a link to the VoiceThread homepage. And that's the first one I will show you. You don't need to add a homepage link into your course. You don't need to add any of these into your course, but I do recommend putting a homepage link in somewhere early on, like in a welcome section or week 1 or something like that, because that's where all of the resources are, all of the written instructions, the tutorials, and you can also go there to create a voice thread before you're ready to share them. All right, so we're going to go over how to add a homepage link, and then we're going to use it to create a simple voice thread. The next type of non-graded link is the course view link, which is basically just saving you a click from the homepage. The individual voice thread is what I call like the bread and butter type of link. This is what you're going to use each week when you share your lectures, your discussions, all of the stuff that you create each week in VoiceThread, you would share as an individual voice thread, as long as it's not a graded activity. All right. So, typically an instructor might have 2 or 3 lectures a week and a discussion or 2. You would just create those on your homepage and then you share them each week using the individual voice thread option. Then we have 3 graded assignment types. The watch assignment is really a graded alternative to the individual voice thread option. Let's say maybe I upload a few videos to a voice thread and I have like a video slideshow. And I want my students to watch those videos and we're going to do something with them later on in the week. And we don't need to interact. I just need to make sure they've watched them. I can upload them to a voice thread, share that voice thread as a watch assignment. And as long as the student watches the whole thing, they play everything that's playable, meaning any of my comments, any video slides or audio slides, they will receive the points for that activity. Then we have the comment assignment, which is typically used for graded discussions or some type of quiz, oral exam, something along those lines, where you share a voice thread with your students and you require them to comment a specific number of times on that voice thread. So maybe you create, let's say, a 5-slide voice thread where you ask them 1 question on each slide. That would be a total of 5 questions, right? If I'm doing the math correctly. And then you want the students to answer all 5 questions. So you set the comments required to 5. All right, and you can even turn on comment moderation, which makes all of the incoming comments to the voice thread from your students hidden. So you can see and hear them all. The students cannot see or hear each other's. Finally, there's the create assignment where you want the students to create a voice thread. And this is typically used for student presentations or some type of demonstration of a physical skill, like playing guitar, doing an exercise, whatever, anything that they need to demonstrate. All right, now one final thing to note, students do not need to create their own VoiceThread account when you have VoiceThread integrated into Canvas. All they need to do is go into your course and click any one of these links. As soon as they click one of these links, it will automatically create their account, it will sign them into their account, and it will add them as a member of the course group. Right? All of that stuff is automatic. It's single sign-on through Canvas. All you need to know how to do is how to add the links, and that's what we're going to practice today. And we're going to do that right now. It's important to know that the non-graded stuff is created through modules. The graded stuff is created through assignments. So we're going to start with the non-graded stuff. So I'm going to go into modules. All right, and I can see my week 1, week 2, week 3 modules. So let's say I want to add a homepage link into week 1. I go into my week one module and click on the plus sign, and I can add an external tool. I click external tool, and I'm going to see a list of all of my external tools. I'm going to click on VoiceThread. Here is how you can tell which integration you are on. If you are on 1.3, when you click on VoiceThread, it's going to do this. It's going to automatically load your configuration menu. All right, so that's how you can tell the difference for what integration your institution is using. If you click on VoiceThread in that list of external tools and you stay on that Canvas pop-up, that means you're still on the older one, the 1.1. If it automatically launches this configuration menu, that means you are on 1.3. All right, so I can see the three non-graded options, and the graded stuff is tucked away behind the assignment builder. I want this to be a homepage link, so I'm going to select VoiceThread homepage, and then I just need to give it a title. This is how it will look in your module. I'll call it VT Home. I'll publish. That brings me back to this Canvas menu where I then click Add Item, and it's been successfully added. All right, so now that we have a homepage link, we are going to use it to create a VoiceThread. Now, for today's purposes, all we need to have is the bare minimum, simplest VoiceThread you could possibly make, which is just a single slide, and you don't even need comments. We just need something that we can share in the next hands-on activity. So when you are creating a VoiceThread to use with your students, obviously you're going to create something a little more complex than just a single slide with no comments, right? The whole point of the tool is to interact with your students, to engage so they can see your face, hear your voice, you can see and hear them, you can have a discussion with them, all of that stuff, right? So normally comments are what VoiceThread is there for. But for today, you don't actually need to do that. The first time through, I'm going to show you how to upload the slide and how to record comments. When you create something for your students, you can upload all different types of slides, a PowerPoint presentation, 20 or 30 or 40 slides, whatever it may be. You can upload 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 images, movie files, whatever you want. You can create a VoiceThread slideshow using all sorts of media. For today, we're just going to go with a single image because it'll upload the quickest, right? And like I said, you don't need to record a comment. The very first time through, I will show you how to record a comment. All right, so I'm going to click on my homepage link, and it's going to load my VoiceThread homepage. All right, now on the homepage, I can see the help documentation here. So this is where you can go to find answers to all of your questions. You can click search full how-to documentation, and you can search by keyword. So let's say, for example, you want to know what a threaded reply is. You can look and find the answers to that through the help documentation. We have screenshots, and for the more complex stuff, we have tutorial videos embedded as well. All right, so that's one of the resources. Other stuff you can find in the Learning Center here. All right, so we have tutorials. I always direct your students to click on the homepage link that you add in the course, tell them to go to this menu and watch those basic tutorials. You can sign up for workshops like the one you're in right now, or view the archives of our older sessions. You can learn about the VoiceThread Certified Educator course, which is a 2-week online course that I facilitate. We do have one coming up, but we're going to send the announcement out for the next round of cohorts very soon. You can check out the blog. You can check out the research that's been done on VoiceThread, or check out our case studies. All of that stuff is available there. But the main reason I'm showing you this for today is because the homepage is where you go to create VoiceThreads before you're ready to share them. So when a student clicks on the homepage link, it will load their VoiceThread homepage. When you click on the homepage link, it will load your VoiceThread homepage. So students don't have access to any of your stuff until you explicitly decide to share it with them. All right, so you can use this as a workspace as you're building VoiceThreads. Maybe it's week 1 and you want to create some lecture content for week 2. You click on the homepage link, you start to build it over the course of the next few days, and then when you're ready, you can share it. And we'll get to the sharing after this. But first, we're going to create one. So I click on the plus sign, and you can see there's a number of ways I can bring my slide content into this voice thread. So these two at the bottom, I wouldn't worry too much about. Take a picture is basically a selfie slide. Record audio is for an audio only slide, which is really only used by podcasters. The URL option is how you can add YouTube videos. So if you paste a YouTube link here and click save, it will import that video into your voice thread as a video slide. The external source is where you can connect your Google account to VoiceThread to import stuff in your Google Drive. You can copy slides and or comments from other voice threads you've created. You can record directly from your webcam, and you can upload files from your computer. So this is what we're going to choose today. Add from device. You're going to upload from your computer. So I click add from device, and now I can get in here and find whatever it is I want to upload. So I'm going to select a single image slide today. Remember, when you're creating a voice thread for your students, you can upload your PowerPoint, videos, images, any number of things that you want. For today, we're just going to go with a single image because it will upload and process the quickest. So I start to upload that, and I'm going to give this a title. I click where it says untitled, and let's say this is going to be a discussion. So I say discussion 1, and I click save. All right. Now, for today's purposes, this is all you need to do. Upload a slide, give it a title, and you are good to go. I'm going to show you how to comment now, though. So I'm going to click open this voice thread. It will open it in the media player. I can click on the plus sign, and I see 4 different commenting options: text, audio, webcam, and file upload. So let's say I want to record an audio comment. I click on the microphone, and now I'm recording. All right. Now, while I record, I can annotate on the screen just by clicking and dragging my cursor around. So I can draw, I can doodle, and that's because of this doodle tool here. So I can choose different colors, and I can decide if I want my drawing to fade or not. I can also zoom in using the zoom tool. And if I hold down shift, I can pan to a different spot just by dragging. If I let go of shift and I click and drag, I can doodle. If I hold down shift, I can click and drag to pan. Let go of shift to doodle, hold down shift to pan. All right, so that's the basics of commenting. You can zoom, you can pan, you can doodle, or you can just say what you have to say. Okay, now I'm going to save this, and you can see my comment appear in the conversation channel. So now I've created a voice thread, and this could be an activity, this could be a lecture, this could be a discussion, whatever you want it to be, right? VoiceThread is a virtual classroom. You can create anything that you want using it, right? So I've created my voice thread. I am good to go. All right, so now that we have a voice thread, now we can share it. So we're going to use the individual voice thread option to share. So this is a non-graded type of link, remember? So we're in modules. All the non-graded stuff is in modules. All the graded stuff is in assignments. So I'm going to, let's say I want to share this in week 1 of my course. I click on the plus sign. I choose external tool. All right, now because I am in the 1.3 integration right now, as soon as I click on VoiceThread, it is going to load my configuration menu. All right, and I always like to stretch this box out because it doesn't give me enough room. It's kind of a snug fit. I'm going to go with the individual VoiceThread option. You could see all of the 3 non-graded options, the graded stuff that we'll get to after this, but I want to share an individual VoiceThread, so I select individual VoiceThread, and it's going to load a list of all of my VoiceThreads from my home page. So let's say I want to share this discussion 1. I select it, and then continue. All right, now this is just a last minute check. If I need to change anything with the slide, I can add more. I could rearrange them if I had a number of different slides. I click continue because I don't need to make any changes. All right, I could also make changes to the comments. I could delete a comment by clicking on the trash can, or record a new one by clicking on the plus sign. But let's say I'm happy with what I have. I click continue, and then here I can decide on the playback setting. So I'm not going to go into all of these in great detail. Most of these are pretty self-explanatory. But just so you know, when I opened the commenting fan to comment earlier, we saw there were 4 ways to comment: microphone, webcam, file upload. You can upload an audio or video file as a comment, and text. But maybe I don't want my students to use all 4 of these options. Maybe I only want them to use microphone or webcam. I can uncheck the ones I do not want them to use and then continue on through. I can also decide to allow my students to add their own slides to this voice thread. So I can make it a collaborative slideshow where maybe I want them to go out and find pictures of something to upload, or maybe I'm doing a class introduction and I upload a slide of me and my family and me doing my hobbies, and I want them to do the same thing, right? I can do that. I can have the students add slides to the voice thread. I can enable threaded commenting, which is just a way to reply to people that have already commented. So let's say I create a voice thread discussion, I share it with my students, I ask them a question, they all respond, and then later on in the week, I want them to engage with each other. They can click on the arrow in one of their classmates' comment bubbles and reply directly to that person. That's what threaded commenting is. Comment moderation is typically used for the comment assignment, and this is just a way to, if you remember, I mentioned this one earlier, it's a way to make sure all of the incoming comments to your voice thread are hidden. So you can ask a question that the whole class can hear. Everybody in your class answers it, but you're the only one who will hear their answers. So this is what you typically use for assessments. All right, and then the rest of these are pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to click continue. Give this a name. So let's say this is discussion 1, and I publish. That brings me back to Canvas where I can then add the item. So we have the assignment builder still. Now I'm going to show you the first 2. I'm just going to demonstrate them. I'll just go through once. It's basically the same process for all of them, give or take, but I'm going to go through the first 2, the watch assignment and the comment assignment, and then I will show you the create assignment as our final hands-on activity. So for the first 2, I'll just show you once, and then I will go right to the create assignment. I will show you that 3 times, and that will be our final hands-on activity. Then I will show you how it looks from the student perspective to submit the assignment, and I will finish with showing you how to grade it as an instructor. All right, so that's what we have in store for the remainder of the day. First, let's go into the assignments area because this is where you need to be for the assignments. So let's say I upload a bunch of videos and I want to share that voice thread just for my students to watch. They don't need to do anything. They don't need to comment. They just need to watch. So I'm going to share this as a watch assignment. Remember, the assignment stuff is all done through the assignments area in Canvas. And anything I do for the assignment builder will automatically create a gradebook column in the Canvas gradebook. So I don't need to manually create a gradebook column. It's all automatic. All right, so I'm in the assignments area, and it's basically the same idea that I've been showing you, except the assignments menus in Canvas are just a little different than the modules menus. So it starts off the exact same way. I click on the plus sign, I choose external tool. All right, now I'm going to give it a name. So let's say this is, let's call this one movie assignment 4, and I just let them know they have to watch it. And maybe this is really just like an online attendance. So maybe it's worth 5 points. Now, the eagle-eyed of you may have noticed when I selected external tool, it did not give me a drop-down list to select VoiceThread. All right, so that's the big difference with the assignments and the modules. I chose external tool, but I need to go into more options to find VoiceThread in my external tool list. All right, so they make your work a little harder for this. So I go into more options. That is going to take me to this kind of backstage area. I can now find VoiceThread in my external tool list. I click on it, and that loads my configuration menu. All right, so now we are back on familiar territory. I'm going to go into the assignment builder, and remember, everything I choose in the assignment builder automatically creates a gradebook column in my Canvas gradebook. I'm going to select the watch assignment and continue. It's going to load a list of all of my voice threads. I select the one that I want to share and continue. Now I can see my slides. If I want to make any changes, add more, I can do that. I click continue. All right, I can make any changes. I actually don't have a comment on this, so I'm going to need to have one because you need to have something playable on the voice thread. So I'm going to say, okay, students, tell me which this is and what that is and blah, blah, blah. All right, and I stop and I save. All right, so once you have something playable on the voice thread, whether it's a video slide or a comment or what have you, you can continue on through. And this is just an abbreviated version of the same playback settings we've already seen. All right, so I can decide to have this start playing when opened. I can have it auto advance from slide to slide. I continue. I give this a name. I can add my instructions. I can pick a start date. I can pick a due date. Now, students can submit after the due date, but it will show up in your grading interface as submitted late, and it will be highlighted in red so you don't miss it. Now, if I want to turn the assignment off and no longer allow submissions, I can add a close date. All right, so I'll put that in there. That's up to you, though. Personal preference. Now, I'm going to click Publish once I am all set. That brings me back to my Canvas menu where I can then select and then save or save and publish. I'm going to go save and publish because that's how I like to roll. All right, now that's the watch assignment. Now I'm going to go create, let's say I'm going to create a quiz. So that's a comment assignment, right? I go into the assignments, same deal. I click on the plus sign. I choose external tool, give it a name. Let's say this is quiz 5. Maybe this is worth 50. And remember, you need to go into more options. So I click more options. And now I'm going to find VoiceThread in my external tool list. I click on it. That loads my configuration menu. I go into the assignment builder. I'm going to choose the comment assignment and continue. Select the voice thread that I want to share. Continue. 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 And now these are the same playback settings we've already seen, except up top there are 2 new ones. Number of comments required. So if this is a quiz, and let's say I asked 5 questions, I'm probably going to want 5 answers from my students, right? So I can put 5 as the number of comments required. And this can be a minimum number, a maximum number, or an exact number. So maybe I'll go with minimum. This is once again a personal choice that you have to make. Number of slides required. If I don't need them to add slides, I don't need to worry about that. I can uncheck the box. All right. If I want them to add slides to this quiz, I can check the box and decide how many slides they can add. Otherwise, leave that puppy unchecked. All right. And then because let's say this is a quiz, enable comment moderation. That's the feature that I mentioned that usually goes with the comment assignment. So if this is a quiz where I do not want my students to hear each other's answers, enable comment moderation. I don't need threaded commenting turned on because they're not going to be discussing anything with each other, right? Comment moderation is for the quiz. If this was going to be like a graded discussion, I would kind of reverse that. I would turn on threaded commenting and turn off comment. If I want the students to engage with each other, but I'm going to grade them based on their answers, this is what I want. If it's a quiz, you don't need threaded commenting, but you do want comment moderation, typically. All right, and then I continue, give this a name, let's call it quiz 5, put my instructions, pick my start date, my due date, my close date, decide if I want students to be able to withdraw and resubmit, and then how am I grading this? Well, let's go with a 50. I click publish. It brings me back to my Canvas menu where I select and I can save or save and publish. All right, so that's the comment assignment. Now I'm going to show you the create assignment. And for this one, this is going to be our final hands-on activity. All right, this is what you use. Remember, anytime you want students to demonstrate something, maybe they're going to record a webcam video slide of them playing guitar or doing burpees or performing a craniotomy or whatever it may be. Or it could be for a presentation, right? Where you want them to upload a PowerPoint. And we always recommend, by the way, whenever you upload a PowerPoint or Keynote, if you're a Mac user, that you export it as a PDF first. So make a little mental note of that. You can upload a raw PowerPoint file directly to VoiceThread, but we always recommend exporting it as a PDF. That way you can ensure that the formatting is going to come out looking the way you want it to. All right. So let's say I want my students to create a presentation in like week 8 of the course. They're going to upload a PowerPoint and they're going to narrate over each slide, just like they would if they were standing in front of the class and had their PowerPoint projected on a big screen and they're talking through it and teaching us stuff, right? So once again, I'm in the assignments area. That's big. Make sure you're in the assignments area. I click on the plus sign. I choose external tool. I give this a name. Student presentations. I'm going to say week 8. Let's make this worth 100. Remember, you need to go into more options to find VoiceThread in your external tool list. You select it. Once you find it, that loads your configuration menu. You go into the assignment builder, choose the create assignment, continue. And now the students are going to create the VoiceThread, but you get to decide on their playback settings. So how many comments do they have to make in their presentation? You can decide whatever you want. I'm going to go with a minimum of 1, right? Keep it simple. How many slides? Well, maybe I don't want any more than 15 slides, right? Whatever your requirements are, you can customize this as you need. I'm going to go with the 15 slide maximum for this. And then what types of comments? Well, maybe I don't want my students using text comments for a presentation, right? I can decide on any of these other settings. So I want them to start playing when it's open. All right. And I wouldn't worry too much about these when you're setting yours up today. But this final one you may want to add, the student gallery. So this is a way to allow students to see each other's presentations. If you do not want them to see each other's presentations, just leave it unchecked. If you do want them to see each other's presentations, once they submit them, turn on the student gallery by checking this box. I will show you how this looks from the student perspective. I click continue. I give this a name. Student presentations for week 8. I'm just going to type the word instructions here so you can see where that shows up for the students. I'm going to pick a start date. I'm going to pick a due date. And maybe I'll add a close date in here. I'm going to allow the students to withdraw and resubmit so you can see how that looks. And then points. Just as an FYI, we are working on a rubric grading option. It's not available now. Our developers are building it. I can't give you an exact date when that will be available, but we will send an email out to every VoiceThreader letting them know, hey, we've added a rubric rating option. So keep an eye out for that in the future. I click publish. That brings me back here. I select and then save or save and publish. But let's take a look at how the students submit this stuff. So I am in this course now as a student. All right, and I can see the assignment my instructor created. So I click student presentations and I can see the instructions, the technical requirements, when this is due, how it's graded, and if I have submitted it yet. So when I'm ready, I click Start Assignment, that big orange button. I can see all of my options. So these are the same options you saw when you were creating a VoiceThread. I'm going to click Add from Device. I'm going to upload whatever it is I want to upload for my presentation. They're all going to start to upload and process. I can give this a title. All right, let me spell that correctly. I click Save. My slides have been added. I can continue on through here. Click on the plus sign to record. And because as the instructor, I removed some of the commenting options, we can only see microphone and webcam as the options here. So I click on the microphone. I can annotate just by clicking and dragging my cursor. When I'm done, I click stop and I save. On the microphone, my comment starts to process. Once I have met the requirements, I will see green check marks next to those requirements. I click submit and I'm all set. But now at this point, wait a minute. What if I realize the instructor told me to add a slide with my sources? I forgot to do that. Because the instructor allowed for resubmission, I can click withdraw submission. I can go in on the micro, make any changes that I need, and then resubmit. Now, the instructor may also have said, go to the student gallery and check out your classmates' work. So I can see the student gallery button. I click on it, and it's going to load a page with all of the student submissions. I'm the only one to submit so far, so that's why I only see mine. Once my classmates submit theirs, they will show up on that page as well. All right, so that's how the students submit. Now, how do I grade this? As the instructor, all I need to do is go to the presentation assignment, and the grading works just like the speed grader for your Canvas stuff. I can see all of my students here on the right-hand side. For those who have not submitted, I can remind them. I can send them this message. They'll get an email through Canvas. For those who have submitted, I just click on their name on the microphone, listen to their presentation. I can record any feedback I have. If I want to record it privately, I click on the lock and I can record and say, hey, Luigi, great job. Don't forget this thing and that thing. When I'm done, I stop and I save. And say, hey, Luigi. And I can see that private reply to my student. That's how I give them feedback right on their presentation. And once I am ready, I can enter their grade here and I click Save Grade. And that will go right into the Canvas gradebook automatically. I don't need to do anything else but click Save Grade. That student gets bumped from the ungraded list into the graded list. And we are all set. And that's it, folks. So remember, I am going to send you the recording of this in just a little bit. It takes a little while to process, but you'll get that within the next couple hours. I will send that out to you. If you need to go over anything, you can use that recording. Go over at your own pace, and you can always go to your VoiceThread homepage link and click on that question mark icon in the upper right to find answers to anything that you want. If you want to get instructions for your students, you want to look at instructions for yourself, that is always the first place to go. Click on that question mark icon and search by keyword through all of the help documentation. All right, folks, thank you so much for your time. Great job today. You should all be proud of yourself. You did a lot. You were able to create a voice thread, add a homepage link, share the voice thread, create an assignment, learn how to get creative with emoji, right? So we did all that stuff today in an hour. I appreciate your time. I hope you have a great rest of your semester. I hope you can continue to join us in the future for more sessions. Happy voice threading, everybody. Take care.